The communications room of the Galactic Council station hummed with its usual quiet efficiency. Hundreds of species worked together, monitoring signals from across known space. Today started like any other day, with routine transmissions and standard reports flowing through the network. Then the distress signal arrived. Communications. Officer Velna felt her crystalline body vibrate with alarm as the message decoded. She was Kalari, one of the oldest peaceful species in the galaxy. Her people had lived for thousands of years without conflict, their bodies made of living crystal that reflected light in beautiful patterns. They were artists, philosophers, and diplomats. They were not warriors. The message came from Thessia 7, a Kalari colony on the frontier. The video showed scenes that made Velna's light dim with horror. Buildings burned. Kalari civilians ran through streets, their crystalline bodies shattering under weapons fire. Children cried for parents who would never answer. The peaceful colony had become a nightmare. "This is Thessia 7, the voice in the message said, breaking with fear. "The Crethon Dominion has attacked. They came without warning. We have no defenses. They are taking our people as slaves. They are killing anyone who resists. Please, Galactic Council, send help. We have maybe days before everyone is dead or taken. Please help us," the message ended. Velna immediately forwarded it to the council chamber. Within an hour, the emergency session began. Representatives from 40 species gathered, their forms ranging from gaseous clouds to massive beings that moved on 6 legs. High Chancellor Morven, an elderly being from a water world, floated in his tank at the center of the chamber. "We have all seen the message," Morven said, his voice translated into every language present. "The Crethon Dominion has violated the Treaty of Peaceful Expansion. They have attacked a defenseless colony. What is our response?" The military coordinator, a tall being with 4 arms, brought up tactical displays. "The nearest council fleet is 3 weeks away. We would need another 2 weeks to receive authorization to mobilize forces across multiple territories. By our estimates, Thessia 7 will be completely subjugated in 5 days." Silence fell over the chamber. 5 days. The Kalari would be gone, dead or enslaved, long before help arrived. This was not the first time the Crethon had attacked peaceful worlds. The Crethon were predators, evolved on a harsh world where only the strong survived. They believed in conquest and saw mercy as weakness. But they were careful. They always attacked targets far from council protection, places where help would arrive too late. "We must do something," Velna said, her voice ringing like crystal chimes. "These are my people. We cannot abandon them. What can we do?" another representative asked. "The laws are clear. We need proper authorization. We need time to mobilize. We cannot break our own laws." The debate continued for hours. Some wanted immediate action. Others insisted on following protocol. The Crethon had attacked dozens of worlds over the past century, but they were cunning. By the time the council responded, they had already taken what they wanted and disappeared into their heavily fortified territory. Any war against them would cost millions of lives. Velna sat in the communications room long after the session ended. The council had voted to send a fleet, but it would take weeks. Too long, far too long. Her people would be dead by then. She looked at her console, searching desperately for any option, any hope. That was when she found the old file. It was buried deep in the historical archives, marked with warnings and red security flags. The file was over 300 years old. The title read, "First Contact Report, Sol System Quarantine Recommendation." Velna opened the file. Her light flickered as she read. 3 centuries ago, a council scout ship had detected radio signals from a small yellow star in an unexplored arm of the galaxy. Following protocol, they had gone to make first contact. What they found had terrified them. The planet was a death world. The report described conditions that seemed impossible for life. Extreme temperatures that swung wildly between freezing and boiling. A gravity field 50% stronger than the galactic standard, an atmosphere that was highly corrosive, weather patterns that included violent storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, and phenomena that could kill in seconds. Ocean waters filled with salt that would poison most species. Tectonic activity that caused earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Worse than the planet itself were the creatures that lived there. The entire world was covered in predators. Everything ate everything else in a constant struggle for survival. The report included videos of creatures with teeth longer than a Kalari's arm, of insects that could kill with venom, of microscopic organisms that caused terrible diseases. And then there were the humans. The scouts had observed them from orbit. Bipedal creatures averaging 2 meters tall, with dense bone structure to withstand the crushing gravity. They had binocular vision, eyes positioned forward on their heads like predators, not on the sides like prey. They had persistence that seemed impossible. The scouts watched humans chase animals for hours until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They watched humans climb mountains that would kill most species, dive into oceans despite the pressure, and survive in environments from frozen wastelands to scorching deserts. The humans had only recently developed spaceflight. They had split the atom. They fought wars against each other with weapons of terrible efficiency. But they also showed signs of art, music, and philosophy. They seemed to be at war with themselves, divided into hundreds of nations, yet capable of cooperation. The scout team's recommendation was clear and unanimous. Quarantine the Sol system. Mark it as forbidden territory. These beings are Clastho-themed Deathworlders. If they ever develop faster-than-light travel and leave their system, they could pose a threat to the entire galaxy. Their world has made them into something we have never encountered. They are predators who learn to think. They are survivors who refuse to die. We do not know if they would be friends or enemies, and we recommend waiting several more centuries before attempting contact again. The Council had agreed. The Sol system was marked as quarantined space. No ships were permitted to enter. The humans were left alone, watched occasionally by long-range sensors but otherwise forgotten. Velna stared at the file. 300 years had passed. Had the humans survived? Had they developed faster-than-light travel? Were they still fighting among themselves, or had they united? The question spun through her mind. She looked at the coordinates for the Sol system. It was actually closer to Theseus 7 than the nearest Council fleet. If the humans had faster-than-light ships, they could reach the colony in days, maybe even hours. But would they help? Would they even understand the message? And if they did come, would they be saviors or another threat? Velna thought of the children in the distress signal. She thought of the Crethon weapons cutting down her people. She thought of slavery and death and the extinction of everything her colony had built. She made her decision. Working quickly, she composed a message. She included the distress signal from Theseus 7. She added tactical information about the Crethon forces. She included a translation matrix that would help the humans understand galactic languages. And she added a simple plea, hoping that somewhere in the violent history of these Deathworlders they understood the concept of mercy. To the people of Earth, she wrote, "We are the Kalari. We are dying. Please help us." She encrypted the message with the Council's highest priority code and aimed it at the Sol system. Then she pressed send. The message flew across space at faster-than-light speeds, carrying the desperate hope of a dying people toward a world of predators. Velna prayed to her ancestors that she had not just made a terrible mistake. The Deep Space Monitoring Station orbiting Mars picked up the signal at 0347 hours Universal Time. Technical Sergeant James Rodriguez was on duty, monitoring the usual background noise of the cosmos. He had been doing this job for 3 years and had never seen anything interesting. Until now, every alarm on his console started flashing red. The computer detected an artificial signal, encrypted and directed specifically at Earth. Rodriguez sat up straight, his coffee forgotten. He had trained for this moment but never believed it would actually happen. "Sir," he called to his commanding officer, "we've got something. Something big." Within minutes, the signal had been routed to United Earth Government headquarters in Geneva. Within hours, the best minds in cryptography, linguistics, and xenobiology were working to decode it. The encryption was sophisticated but included a translation matrix, clearly designed to help humans understand. When the message finally played, the command center fell silent. The video showed beings unlike anything humans had ever imagined. They looked like living sculptures made of crystal, their bodies reflecting light in rainbow patterns. They were beautiful and delicate, and they were dying. The scenes of destruction played across the screens. Cities burning, civilians running, children crying, the weapons fire that shattered crystalline bodies, the brutal efficiency of the attackers, large reptilian creatures that moved with the confidence of apex predators. Admiral Marcus Chen, commander of the United Terran Fleet, watched the video 3 times. He was a career military officer, 52 years old with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much conflict. But this was different. This was not another border dispute or corporate war. This was first contact, and it was a cry for help. "How far?" he asked. "Thessia 7 is approximately 43 light-years from Earth, sir," a young lieutenant responded. "With our latest slip space drives, we could be there in 60 hours. What do we know about these Krethon?" The intelligence officer brought up analysis files. Based on the video and our observations, they appear to be a militaristic species. Reptilian biology evolved predators. They move with confidence and coordination. Their weapons are energy-based, relatively advanced. They seem to view this as a simple raid, not a real battle. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. He had spent his entire career preparing Earth's defenses for the day when humanity might encounter hostile aliens. Now that day had come, but not in the way anyone expected. The aliens were not invading Earth. They were killing someone else, and that someone else was asking for help. "Get me the Security Council," Chen said. The emergency session of the United Earth Security Council convened within 2 hours. Representatives from every major nation appeared via hologram. The debate was intense but surprisingly short. "We don't know these beings," the Chinese representative said. "They could be deceiving us. This could be a trap." "Look at them," the African Union representative responded. "Does that look like a trap? Those are civilians being murdered." "We have no obligation to intervene in alien conflicts," the European Federation argued. "We should observe and learn, not jump into a war." Admiral Chen stood and addressed the council. "Ladies and gentlemen, I understand the caution. But let me be clear about what we are seeing. A peaceful civilization is being destroyed. They sent us a distress call, not knowing if we would even receive it, not knowing if we would care. They are desperate and dying. Now, I'm a military officer. I follow orders. But I am also a human being, and I took an oath to protect the innocent. If we turn away from this, what does that say about who we are?" Sarah Chen, the Admiral's daughter and commander of the carrier TFS Indomitable, spoke from her ship. "We have spent centuries fighting each other. We have killed millions in our wars. We have made terrible mistakes. But we have also learned. We created the Geneva Conventions. We established human rights. We decided that some things are worth fighting for, even when it costs us. If we ignore this, we are saying that all those principles only matter when they are convenient. Is that who we want to be when we meet the galaxy?" The vote took 30 minutes. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would respond. The mobilization was the fastest in Earth's military history. The United Terran Fleet had been preparing for interstellar conflict for decades, but those plans always assumed defending Earth, not projecting power across light years. Now those preparations would be tested. The response force assembled in orbit, the TFS Indomitable, a heavy carrier with a crew of 3,000 and carrying 120 fighter craft. 3 destroyers, the Churchill, the Mandela, and the Nakamura. 2 marine assault ships, the Guadalcanal and the Iwo Jima, carrying 5,000 combat troops between them. Support ships for logistics, medical care, and repairs. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the fleet displayed on her screens. She was 38, younger than most fleet commanders, but she had earned her position through skill and dedication. She wore her dark hair short, military standard, and her brown eyes held the same determination that had defined her father's career. "All ships report ready." "Commander," her executive officer said. Sarah took a deep breath. This was it. Humanity's first interstellar military operation. Not for conquest, not for resources, but because someone had asked for help. "Send to all ships," she said. "We are about to do something unprecedented. We are going to travel farther than any human has gone in a military vessel. We are going to meet an alien species, and we are probably going to fight another alien species we have never encountered. I know you are all nervous, I am too. But remember why we are doing this. Remember those civilians in the video. Remember that they called out in the darkness and we answered. That is what defines us. Not our weapons or our ships, but our choice to stand against evil when we see it. All ships prepare for slipspace jump." The fleet's slipspace drives powered up, creating bubbles of warped space around each vessel. In ordinary space, it would take 43 years to reach Thessia 7, even traveling at light speed. But slipspace allowed ships to take shortcuts through the fabric of reality itself, bypassing the normal rules of physics. The drives reached full power. Space twisted and folded. One moment the fleet hung in orbit around Mars. The next they were gone, racing through the impossible geometry of slip space toward a world they had never seen. During the 60-hour journey, the crew prepared. Combat drills ran constantly. Weapons were tested and retested. Marines practiced boarding actions and ground assault tactics. Medical teams prepared for casualties, both human and alien. Sarah spent hours reviewing everything they knew about the Krython. Intelligence had analyzed the video in detail, building profiles of the enemy's capabilities. The Krython ships appeared heavily armed but moved slowly, suggesting they relied on shields and firepower rather than maneuverability. Their ground forces showed good tactical coordination but seemed to expect minimal resistance. "They fight like bullies," Sarah's tactical officer observed. "They are used to overwhelming weaker opponents. They have probably never faced a real challenge." Sarah nodded. "That gives us an advantage. They will underestimate us. But we cannot underestimate them. They are still dangerous and we have no idea what their full capabilities are." The ship's xenobiologist provided briefings on the Kalari. Based on the video, they were a crystalline-based life form, probably silicon rather than carbon. They appeared fragile, their bodies shattering under weapons fire. They showed no signs of military infrastructure or combat capability. They were true pacifists, which made their situation even more tragic. As the hours counted down, Sarah stood in the ship's observation deck, looking at the swirling patterns of slip space outside the windows. Somewhere ahead was a world where people were dying, people who did not look human, who did not share humanity's biology or culture or history, but who were still people. They had families and dreams and the right to live in peace. The communication from Earth came through. "Deathworlder fleet, this is home. The world is watching.
Make us proud.
Bring them home. Good luck and good hunting." Sarah smiled at the designation. Deathworlder fleet, it was accurate. Humans had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every day. They had survived ice ages and plagues and predators. They had climbed to the top of the food chain through stubbornness and refusal to quit. If the galaxy thought Earth was a death world, then let them see what Deathworlders could do. "All hands prepare for slip space exit," the announcement rang through the ship. "Combat stations in 5 minutes." The fleet dropped out of slip space at the edge of the Thessia 7 system. Sensors immediately detected the Krython armada orbiting the planet. 20 warships, each larger than any human vessel. Sarah looked at the display and felt no fear, only determination. They had come to help. They would not fail. "Open a channel to the Krython flagship," she ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves." Admiral Krath stood on the command deck of his flagship, the vengeance of Krython, and felt satisfaction deep in his chest. The conquest of Thessia 7 was proceeding perfectly. The crystalline weaklings had offered no resistance. Their cities burned. Their people died or were captured for the slave markets. In another day, maybe 2, the entire planet would be subjugated. Krath was a massive being, nearly 3 meters tall, with scales the color of dried blood and eyes that reflected no mercy. He had led raids on 17 worlds and never suffered a defeat. The Kalari were just another weak species in a galaxy full of prey. His sensor officer suddenly hissed in alarm. "Admiral, multiple contacts just appeared at the system's edge. 6 vessels, unknown configuration. They are approaching on an intercept course." Krath felt annoyance rather than concern. Probably another Galactic Council delegation coming to negotiate. "Tell them we are acting within our territorial rights, and they should leave before we add their ships to our collection." "Sir," analyzing their trajectory and speed, "these ships are moving fast, much faster than standard Council vessels, and they are heading straight for us, not entering diplomatic approach patterns." Now Krath felt the first stirring of interest. "Open communications. Let me see who dares to challenge the Krython Dominion." The communication channel opened, and Krath found himself looking at something he had never seen before. A bipedal creature with smooth skin, no scales, and the forward-facing eyes of a predator. It stood straight despite the gravity that should have crushed a being of its size. Behind it, he could see others moving with purpose on what was clearly a warship bridge. The creature spoke, and the translation came through. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Terran Fleet. You are ordered to cease all hostile actions against the Kalari immediately. Withdraw your forces from Thessia 7. You have 1 hour to comply. This is your only warning. For a moment, Krath could not believe what he had heard. Then he began to laugh. The sound rumbled through his chest and his crew joined in. These unknown aliens were threatening him, with 6 small ships against his armada of 20. "I am Admiral Krath of the Krethon Dominion," he responded, making sure his teeth showed. "You are in Krethon space. The Kalari are our property by right of conquest. Leave now, or we will add your primitive vessels to the wreckage orbiting this world." The human female did not seem frightened. Instead, she smiled, showing her own teeth. Krath felt something strange in his spine, an instinct he had not felt since he was a juvenile. "His prey was showing fangs, I see," Sarah said. "We tried diplomacy. Remember that." She closed the channel. Krath turned to his weapons officer. "Destroy them. Show these primitives what happens when they challenge the Krethon." The Krethon fleet opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space toward the human ships. Standard Krethon tactics. Overwhelming firepower at long range, breaking enemy shields before moving in for close combat. It had worked on every species they had encountered. The human fleet scattered. Their ships moved with impossible speed, dodging and weaving through the energy fire like small fish evading a large predator. Krath watched in surprise as not a single shot connected. "What is their propulsion system?" he demanded. "How are they maneuvering like that?" "Unknown, Admiral. They are pulling acceleration that would crush any species we know. Their inertial dampening must be far more advanced than ours. Or," the sensor officer paused, checking his readings again, "or their crew can withstand much higher G-forces than previously thought possible." The human destroyers reached attack range and fired. But they did not use energy weapons. Instead, solid projectiles launched from their ships at incredible velocity. Railguns, Krath realized. Primitive kinetic weapons that most species had abandoned centuries ago. Except these railguns were not primitive. The projectiles traveled at a significant fraction of light speed, and when they hit hard. The first Krethon cruiser took 3 rounds through its forward shield. The shield collapsed and the projectiles punched through armor like it was not there. Explosions rippled along the ship's hull. "Shields at 60%, his defensive officer reported. "How did their weapons penetrate so easily?" Krath did not answer. He was watching the tactical display with growing concern. The human ships were not fighting like any enemy he had encountered. They were aggressive, moving in close, using their superior speed to avoid return fire while hammering his ships with kinetic weapons and missiles. The human carrier launched fighter craft. Krath had expected perhaps a dozen. Instead, over 100 small ships poured from the carrier, each one moving even faster than the larger vessels. They swarmed toward his fleet like insects. "Point defense, target those fighters," Krath ordered. The Krethon ships opened fire with close-range weapons designed to intercept missiles. But the human fighters dodged and weaved, their pilots performing maneuvers that should have been impossible. Several fighters were hit and destroyed, but the rest kept coming. When the fighters reached the Krethon ships, they proved to be carrying weapons far heavier than expected. Missiles and more railguns tore into shields and armor. 2 more Krethon cruisers suffered catastrophic damage. Then the human destroyers did something that shocked every Krethon on the bridge. They accelerated straight toward the Krethon formation at maximum speed, firing continuously. It was a suicide charge, or it should have been. Krethon ships concentrated fire on the lead destroyer, the Churchill. The destroyer's shields flared and failed. Energy beams scorched its hull. But the ship kept coming. And now it was close enough that Krath could see damage along its side, sections blown open to space. Yet it still fought, still fired. Its crew refusing to die. "They are insane," his weapons officer whispered. The Churchill fired one last salvo at point-blank range directly into a Krethon battlecruiser. The heavy railgun rounds went completely through the larger ship, causing internal explosions. The battlecruiser began to list, systems failing. The Churchill finally lost power and drifted, dead in space but still intact. Escape pods launched from its hull. Krath realized with cold certainty that he was losing this battle. Half his fleet was damaged or destroyed, and the human ships were still fighting with the same intensity. They showed no fear, no hesitation. They fought like cornered predators, and worse, they fought smart. Every maneuver was coordinated. Every attack exploited weakness. They were not just warriors. They were professionals. "All ships retreat pattern," Krath ordered. "Fall back to defensive positions." But the humans were not done. As the Krethon fleet tried to regroup, something emerged from the human carrier that made Krath's blood run cold. Boarding pods, dozens of them launching at high speed toward his flagship. "Stop them," he roared. Point defense fire destroyed some pods, but others broke through, slamming into the Vengeance's hull. Breaching charges exploded, creating holes in the armor. Krath watched on internal monitors as human soldiers poured into his ship. They wore armored suits and carried weapons that seemed crude but effective. What struck Krath was how they moved. They advanced through the corridors with speed and precision, covering each other, moving as coordinated units. His warriors tried to fight back, but the humans were relentless. One monitor showed a human soldier taking fire from 3 Krethon warriors. The human's armor sparked and cracked, but the soldier kept fighting, returning fire and eliminating 2 attackers before falling. Another human immediately moved up to take their place. "They fight without fear," Krath's security officer said, his voice filled with something Krath had never heard from a Krethon: respect. The human Marines fought through his ship with terrible efficiency. They used explosives to breach sealed doors. They threw grenades around corners. They advanced through fire that would have broken any other force, and when they encountered civilian areas where Kalari prisoners were held, they stopped to secure the prisoners before moving on. Krath realized what was happening. The humans were not here to destroy his fleet. They were here to rescue the Kalari. They were taking his ship not for conquest, but to save the prisoners aboard. Within 20 minutes, the human Marines had fought their way to the ship's detention center. They freed the Kalari prisoners, treating them with what appeared to be gentleness, their medics checking for injuries. Krath's remaining forces tried to mount a counterattack, gathering in the main corridor leading to the detention center. 50 Krethon warriors against perhaps 20 humans. The odds should have been in Krethon favor. The battle that followed would haunt Krath for the rest of his life. The humans fought like nothing he had seen. They used their armor's strength to physically overpower Krethon warriors. They used tactics that seemed impossible. One human would deliberately draw fire while others flanked. They threw themselves in harm's way to protect wounded comrades. They showed a level of coordination and sacrifice that Krath had thought was just propaganda. One human, a massive soldier with stripes on his armor indicating rank, held a position alone against a dozen Krethon warriors. He fought until his weapon was empty, then used it as a club. When that broke, he fought with his armored fists. He took wounds that should have killed him and kept fighting until reinforcements arrived. The Kalari prisoners watched from behind him, protected by his body. The night sky of Thesia 7 glowed with the light of burning cities. In the main Krethon garrison, 5,000 Krethon ground forces held defensive positions around 20,000 Kalari hostages. The Krethon commander, General Vrak, believed the hostages would protect him from orbital strikes. He did not understand humans. Aboard the Indomitable, Colonel Marcus Webb studied the tactical situation. He commanded the Terran Marines, 5,000 of Earth's best soldiers. His orders were clear: rescue the hostages and neutralize the Krethon ground forces. The challenge was doing one without preventing the other. "We could bombard from orbit," one young officer suggested. "Take out their heavy weapons, then go in." Webb shook his head. "Too risky. The hostages are scattered throughout the garrison. Any orbital strike could kill the people we are trying to save. We do this the hard way. We go in." The plan was complex and dangerous. 3,000 Marines would deploy around the garrison in the darkness. They would infiltrate, identify hostage locations, and strike simultaneously across the entire complex. Speed, coordination, and surprise were essential. The deployment began at midnight local time. Dropships descended through the atmosphere, staying low to avoid detection. Marines fast roped down in small teams, spreading across the terrain around the garrison. Sergeant First Class Maria Santos led her squad through the darkness. She had served 8 years in the Marines, seen combat in corporate wars on Earth, but this was different. She was fighting aliens on an alien world to save another alien species. The absurdity of it would have made her laugh if the situation were not so serious. Her squad moved through the ruins of a Kalari neighborhood. The buildings here were beautiful, even destroyed. They had been grown from crystal, shaped by art rather than simple construction. Now they were shattered, reflecting moonlight in broken fragments. "Contact," her point man whispered over the radio. 2 Krethon sentries 50 meters ahead." Santos raised her fist and the squad stopped. She studied the Krethon through her helmet's enhanced vision. They were big, bigger than any human, with scales and claws. They carried energy weapons and wore armor. But they were not alert. They thought themselves safe. Take them quietly, Santos ordered. Two of her Marines moved forward like shadows. They had trained for years in close combat. The Crethon never knew what hit them. One moment they stood guard, the next they were down, stunned by non-lethal weapons. The humans were under orders to use lethal force only when necessary. The squad moved on deeper into the garrison. Around the complex, other squads did the same, infiltrating through gaps in the Crethon defenses. The Crethon had planned for an orbital assault or a massed ground attack. They had not planned for ghosts. Inside the garrison's main detention center, a Kalari elder named Crystalline Song huddled with her people. She had lived for 300 years and never seen violence until the Crethon came. Now her world was broken, her people captive or dead. The Crethon guards spoke among themselves in their harsh language. Crystalline Song did not understand the words, but she understood the meaning. They were talking about which prisoners to sell and which to kill. Her people's lives were being decided like they were objects. Then the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, casting everything in red light. The Crethon guards shouted in confusion. An explosion echoed from somewhere in the complex, then another. The detention center door exploded inward. Through the smoke came figures in armor moving fast. Crystalline Song thought for a moment the Crethon were attacking, but these were different. Smaller than Crethon, moving with different patterns. Kalari civilians, stay down, a voice said in perfect Kalari language. We are Terran Marines. We are here to rescue you, Terran. The word from the distress signal. The Deathworlders had come. The armored figures moved through the detention center with incredible speed. They engaged the Crethon guards with weapons fire, but their primary focus seemed to be protecting the prisoners. One Marine threw himself in front of a group of Kalari children when a Crethon fired in their direction. His armor took the hit and he returned fire without hesitation. Within 2 minutes, the detention center was secure. Marines moved among the prisoners, their medics checking for injuries. Despite their armored appearance, they treated the Kalari with gentleness. Sergeant Santos knelt beside Crystalline Song. The human removed her helmet, revealing a young female face with dark skin and intense brown eyes. Are you injured? Santos asked. Crystalline Song stared. The human looked so strange, so alien, yet her eyes showed concern. No, I'm not hurt, but many of my people are injured. Can you truly save us? Yes, ma'am, Santos said firmly. That is exactly why we are here. We are going to get you out of this place and somewhere safe. Throughout the garrison, similar scenes played out. Marines breached multiple detention centers simultaneously, overwhelming Crethon guards before they could harm prisoners. The coordination was perfect, the execution flawless. General Vrak realized what was happening when reports flooded his command center. The humans were inside his garrison, moving through it like they owned it. His forces were being defeated in detail, squad by squad. Seal the command center, he ordered. Gather all forces here. We make our stand. But the humans did not give him time. Colonel Webb had been monitoring the operation from a dropship overhead. When he saw the Crethon forces consolidating, he made his decision. All units converge on the command center. We end this now. The human Marines advanced on the command center from all sides. The Crethon made their stand and the fighting became intense. Energy weapons and railguns lit up the night. Explosions rocked the buildings. But the humans kept coming. One Marine, Private Jackson, saw a Crethon warrior firing at wounded prisoners trying to crawl to safety. Without hesitation, Jackson charged. He took hits to his armor but kept running. He tackled the Crethon, physically wrestling the larger alien to the ground. Another Marine reached him and together they subdued the warrior. Jackson died 30 seconds later from his wounds. His last words over the radio were, "Got him. Prisoners are safe." The battle for the command center lasted 20 minutes. The Crethon fought hard, but they were disorganized and demoralized. The humans fought with a purpose that overcame any physical disadvantage. When a Marine fell, another took their place. They advanced through fire that would have stopped any other force. Colonel Webb led the final assault personally. He kicked down the command center door and found General Vrak standing with a weapon aimed at a group of Kalari hostages. "Stop or they die," Vrak said. Webb did not stop. He fired in one smooth motion, his shot hitting Vrak's weapon and sending it flying. Before Vrak could react, Webb was on him, physically tackling the larger alien. 2 other Marines joined him and Vrak was subdued. "War is over for you," Webb said coldly. "You are going to face justice for what you have done here." By dawn, the garrison was secure. The Crethon ground forces had surrendered. The Kalari prisoners were being evacuated to human ships where medical teams waited. Marine medics worked on both human and alien wounded, following their training to save lives without discrimination. Crystalline Song stood in the ruins of her colony, watching human Marines move through the streets. They were helping Kalari survivors, clearing rubble, setting up shelters. These warriors, these predators from a death world, were also builders and helpers. A young Marine approached her. He was bleeding from a wound in his arm but still working. He offered her a bottle of water. "Drink this, ma'am," he said. "It is safe for Kalari biology." "Our doctors checked." Crystalline Song took the water. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you come?" "We are strangers. This is not your war." The Marine looked surprised by the question. "Because you asked for help, ma'am. Because it was the right thing to do." "That is reason enough. But your people died here. That soldier, Jackson, I saw him fall. He gave his life for us." The Marine nodded, his expression sad. "Jackson was a good Marine. A good man. He knew the risks. We all did. But we also knew that if we did not come, you would all die. We could not let that happen." "Are all humans like this?" Crystalline Song asked. The Marine smiled slightly. "We have our problems, ma'am. We are not perfect. We fight among ourselves sometimes. We make mistakes. But when someone is in trouble, when someone needs help, yes, most humans will try to do the right thing. It is who we are." Colonel Webb approached, his armor scarred from battle. He had been coordinating the rescue efforts all night without rest. "Elder Crystalline Song?" he asked. "I am Colonel Webb. I need to inform you that we have secured the garrison. All hostages are safe. We have captured General Vrak and his senior officers. They will face trial for their crimes." "Trial?" Crystalline Song asked. "You are not going to execute them?" "No, ma'am. We have laws about prisoners of war. Even enemy soldiers have rights. They will receive medical care, food, shelter, and a fair trial. Justice, not revenge." Crystalline Song felt something she had not felt in days. Hope. "I do not understand your people. You are warriors from a harsh world, yet you show mercy. You are predators, yet you protect the weak. How can you be both?" Webb considered the question. "Maybe that is exactly why we can be both. We know what it is like to be prey. Our ancestors were hunted by bigger, stronger predators." The news traveled across the galaxy at faster than light speed, carried by communication relays and gossip, by official reports and wild rumors. The quarantined Deathworlders had emerged from their isolation. They had intervened in an alien conflict. They had defeated the Crethon Dominion in less than a day. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of species, all talking at once. High Chancellor Morvan struggled to maintain order. "Please," Morvan called out. "We must address this situation calmly and rationally." "Calmly?" the Vrex ambassador demanded. The Vrex were an insectoid species who had lost 2 colonies to Crethon raids. The Deathworlders have done in one day what the Council failed to do in a century. They stopped the Crethon. How can we be calm about this? They violated the quarantine, another representative argued. They entered galactic space without authorization. They engaged in military action without Council approval. This sets a dangerous precedent. The dangerous precedent was set when we did nothing, Velna said, standing. Her crystalline body still showed cracks from stress, but her voice rang clear. "I sent that distress call to Earth. I violated protocols because my people were dying, and the Council's response would have arrived too late. The humans came. They saved thousands of lives. If that is a crime, then I am guilty." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species demanded the humans be ordered back to their quarantine. Others wanted to thank them. A few wanted to establish diplomatic relations immediately. The door to the chamber opened and silence fell. Commander Sarah Chen walked in, accompanied by a small delegation. She wore her formal uniform, dark blue with the insignia of the United Terran Fleet. Behind her came her father, Admiral Marcus Chen, and 2 human diplomats. Sarah walked to the center of the chamber and looked around at the assembled species. She had seen the videos of first contact centuries ago, when human scouts first encountered aliens. Those humans had been cautious, afraid, unsure. Sarah felt none of that. She had just fought a battle and won. She had saved lives. She had nothing to apologize for. "High Chancellor Morvan," Sarah said. "Members of the Galactic Council. I am Commander Sarah Chen, representing Earth and humanity. We received a distress call from the Kalari people. We responded. We engaged hostile forces that were committing what we call war crimes. The murder of civilians, the taking of slaves, the destruction of a peaceful society. We stopped them. We have brought Admiral Krath and General Vrak with us. They are war criminals, and we are prepared to hand them over to proper authorities for trial. You had no authority to intervene, one representative said. You are not members of the Galactic Council. You do not have the right to act as police in galactic affairs. Sarah met the representative's eyes without flinching. We did not act as police. We acted as decent beings who heard a cry for help. If your laws say we should have ignored that cry, then your laws are wrong. We will not apologize for saving lives. Admiral Marcus Chen stepped forward. Let me be clear about Earth's position. We did not ask to be quarantined. You studied us from afar, decided we were too dangerous, and left us alone. That was your choice. But when we received a distress call, we made our choice. We chose to help. That is who we are. If the galaxy has a problem with that, we will listen. But we will not change. Velna moved to stand beside Sarah. The humans saved my people. They asked for nothing in return. They treated Krethon prisoners with dignity, even after witnessing Krethon atrocities. They risked their lives for strangers. If this council condemns them for that, then this council has lost its way. I second that statement, the Vrek's ambassador said, standing. The humans did what we could not. They stood against the Krethon and won. I propose we offer them membership in the Galactic Council and request their assistance in dealing with other threats. That is premature, High Chancellor Morven said. We know nothing about these humans. They could be as dangerous as the Krethon, simply hiding it better. Sarah pulled out a data device. We anticipated your concerns. This contains comprehensive information about Earth and humanity. Our history, our culture, our technology, our laws. We are not hiding anything. Yes, we come from what you call a death world. Yes, we evolved as predators. Yes, we have fought terrible wars among ourselves. But we also created concepts like human rights, the Geneva Conventions, the United Nations, and countless philosophies about peace and justice. We are not perfect, but we are trying to be better. Judge us by our actions, not your fears. She uploaded the data to the Council's network. Representatives began reviewing it on their personal displays. The information was staggering. Earth's violent history, its endless conflicts, but also its art, music, literature, and philosophy. Humans who fought wars and humans who protested wars. Weapons of mass destruction and organizations dedicated to eliminating them. A species that contained both terrible cruelty and incredible compassion. This is complex, Morven said, reviewing the data. Your species seems to be at war with itself. We are, Admiral Chen admitted. We always have been. But we are learning. Each generation tries to do better than the last. We make progress slowly. Sometimes we slide backward, but we keep trying. That is the human condition. To struggle with our own nature and try to overcome our worst impulses. A representative from a species called the Tornaki stood. They were a peaceful aquatic species who had suffered under Krethon occupation for 20 years, before being liberated by Council forces. I have reviewed the human data. I have also reviewed the reports from Thessia 7. The humans show something we rarely see in warrior species. They know when to stop fighting. They could have killed all the Krethon forces. Instead, they captured them for trial. They could have taken Thessia 7 for themselves. Instead, they are helping rebuild it and asking nothing in return.
I believe they are exactly what they claim, warriors with honor. The debate continued for hours.
Sarah stood patiently answering questions, providing clarification, never backing down from the truth of what humanity was. Flawed, dangerous but capable of great good. Finally, Morven called for a vote. The question before us is simple. Do we welcome humanity to the galactic community, or do we ask them to return to isolation? The vote was not unanimous. 30% of species voted for continued quarantine, but the majority voted to welcome Earth with conditions. Human military forces would need to coordinate with Council peacekeeping operations. Earth would need to join the various galactic treaties and agreements. Humanity would be watched closely. Sarah accepted the terms. Earth agrees to join the Galactic Council as a provisional member. We will honor your treaties and work within your systems. But understand this. If we receive another distress call, we will respond. We will not ignore people in need while paperwork is being processed. If that makes us difficult members, so be it. Felna approached Sarah after the session. Thank you, she said simply. For everything, Sarah smiled. Thank you for trusting us. For believing we would come. Will you visit Thessia 7 before you leave? My people want to honor you properly. 3 days later, Sarah stood on a platform in the rebuilt central square of the main Kalari colony. Thousands of Kalari had gathered, their crystalline bodies reflecting the sunlight in brilliant colors. Human Marines stood among them, no longer in combat armor but in dress uniforms. Crystalline Song, representing all Kalari, stepped forward carrying a crystal sculpture. It showed a human and a Kalari standing together, supporting each other. This is the highest honor my people can bestow, Crystalline Song said. We name you and all humans guardians of the helpless. This title has not been given in 2,000 years. It means that you are counted as friends to all peaceful peoples. It means that your name will be remembered as long as Kalari exist. It means that we will stand with you as you stood with us. Sarah accepted the crystal, feeling its weight. We did what anyone should do. We heard someone in trouble and we helped. That is not heroism. That is basic decency. Perhaps, Crystalline Song said. But basic decency backed by the strength to act is the definition of heroism. You are predators who chose to protect instead of hunt. Warriors who chose mercy over cruelty. You are what we all hope to be. Strong enough to be kind. Other species sent delegations. The Vrex offered a military alliance. The Tornaki sent medical supplies to help human wounded. A dozen smaller species sent messages. If you ever need help, we will come. The human fleet prepared to return to Earth, but before they left, Sarah received a private communication from Admiral Chen on Earth. Sarah, the Security Council has approved construction of a permanent deep space station at the edge of human territory. We are calling it Gateway Station. It will serve as our connection to the galaxy and as a rapid response base. We are also expanding the fleet. It seems we have a new role to play out here. Sarah looked at the stars from her bridge. Somewhere out there were more species in trouble, more people who needed help, more crises that would require intervention. Good, she said. We will be ready. 6 months later, Gateway Station opened. It was a massive structure, combining human and alien technology, a symbol of cooperation. Ships from dozens species came to visit, to trade, to establish diplomatic relations.